Restrepo is a visionary artist whose unique art processes reflects a profound exploration of identity, memory, and the interplay between personal and collective narratives. Drawing inspiration from his Colombian heritage, Camilo employs a diverse range of methods with innovative approaches. His dense works, made of paper, can be power washed and agitated, and just like people, makes it stronger and more resilient. His use of materials such as markers, crayons, and mixed media creates rich visual stories and vibrant compositions that invite viewers to engage deeply with his work. Camilo's creative journey often involves the experience of living in Colombia during the drug war, as he seeks to capture the essence of his characters, who are all familiar, provoking thought and emotion. Through his art, he not only expresses his own experiences, but also creates a platform for dialogue around broader social issues, making his work both visually exciting and culturally resonant. Hi, this is Donnalynn Patakos, and welcome to Portray Presents. Today we have Camilo Restrepo from Medellín, Colombia with us, and we had done an article on his work in our last issue, and as luck would have it, he just happened to be in Miami right after at the Fountainhead residency. So I'm really excited to have you here. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Anytime. So you had a really interesting story with us. There were a lot of things I learned that I did not know about Colombia, about just basically the war on drugs in general. Yeah. And one of the most surprising things to me were the hippos, and how you had done, and still are, creating work about the hippopotamus. Can you please tell us about that a little bit?
In 1983, there were 4 hippos in Colombia that Pablo Escobar, the drug trafficking, brought to Colombia, and one was dead. So there were 3, basically 1 male and 2 females, and they started to reproduce. And in Colombia, there are no predators for hippos. And we also don't have dry season, so they are living in paradise. Because the thing that control the most the hippo groups in Africa is the dryness, because the water starts to be less, and then there are more fights, and then there are like diseases like anthrax and brucellosis. A lot of hippos die because of that, but in Colombia, it's like they are having a really, really great time.
So they're just invasive at this point.
Yeah, it's considered an exotic, invasive species, but it just happened like in 2021, I think, and we have been dealing with them for 4 years. So they started to reproduce in an exponential way. Right. So there were 4 in 1983.
There were 3.
There were, and one died. When Pablo Escobar was killed, there were between 18 and 20 in 1993, and nowadays we have 250.
Wow. Are they just in Medellín? Like, where are they? Are they spread out?
They are like 3 hours away from Medellín. It's between Medellín and Bogotá, in a place called Doradal and Puerto Triunfo, where Pablo Escobar had his ranch. Because he wanted to build a zoo there. Yeah. So they are in the wild, and nowadays it is the biggest population of wild hippos outside Africa.
My goodness.
Where they are from. And the population in Colombia is sometimes bigger than some groups in Africa. And they are messing with the environment, they are displacing native animals. They are contaminating the water because of the hippo dung, and fishes are dying. The birds that come to these waters
are lunch.
Are not going there anymore because they don't have food, and they are also attacking people. So
they're very vicious, aren't they?
Yeah, they are really territorial, and I guess that's why nobody wanted to, the government didn't want to take care of them, because when Pablo Escobar died, they took all the animals to zoos, and they left some there because there is like a amusement park, but the hippos were too difficult to catch, and just one was killed in 2009, but the animalist activists were like so angry with that that no politician wants to take risk controlling them. So they have tried like castration, chemical castration, mechanical castration, translocation, but it doesn't work. The only way to stop them is to kill them, which is paradoxical because it would be in the same way in which Pablo Escobar got rid of his enemies. It's the way in which the government will have to get rid of them. With a little twist is that the hippos are victims because they are not.
Yeah. They didn't choose to come.
They didn't choose
it's just
to come.
this sort of path of destruction that he brought with him, and maybe didn't quite think it out. Maybe like a lot of things he did.
Yeah.
But you know, in the long run, everybody suffers because of things like this.
Yeah,
and especially the animals, because it's not their fault.
It's not their fault, but they are also perpetrators. So it's a really weird situation, absurd. But for me, it's like how the violence in Colombia with this war on drugs, also because of the illegality of drugs, start to reincarnate in vicious cycles that are like more and more aggressive every time.
That's right. Yeah. So growing up in Colombia for you, you know, was the timing of when you were born and you know the drug wars that were happening really left an impression on you.
Yeah, of course, because I was born in 1973 and Medellín was really calm. But when I was 5 years old, I saw the first corpse I saw in my life, and we weren't going to school. The bus driver told us to get out of the bus, and then we were in Halloween dressed as superheroes without like having like too much power, but not being able to bring this dead body to life. And my house has 3 times all the windows blown up because of bombs against Pablo Escobar. I saw the first time a guy being killed just in front of me in the act of being killed when I was 12. And it happened 2 or 3 times more. I don't know, I was chased by a hitman because we had an argument in a bar. It was for 6 months. I was so scary until somebody told me that guy was killed.
So he was chasing you for 6 months after one? Wow.
Yeah, and once we were going to the coast by car, I was driving, and the guerrilla group, Las FARC, stopped us. I was with my girlfriend, and my friend was with his girlfriend, and they took my friend, and he was kidnapped. And then they started to burn buses, and then there was a fight between the army and the guerrilla group. It was really scary. So my work is really influenced by that because it has to be with trauma. And I guess my generation is a traumatized generation because of violence.
Yeah, it's almost like living in a really bad action movie, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like a nightmare action movie, but you're actually there. I mean, you would think, you know, even war-torn countries, when, you know, during World War II, you would think that people also experience this kind of trauma afterwards. And do you have close friends of yours that you talk to about these things, or do you just like not talk about it anymore, try to move on with your life? What was your path there?
No, my path is always talking about that. I want to spread the word about the violence we had and the violence that still continue to happen in Colombia.
I think that that's a really good point, is that what people don't realize is there's still a war on drugs, which is primarily what your voice and your work is, correct?
Yeah.
Because most of us think, oh, once Pablo Escobar was gone, that was it. But that's really not the case.
No, it is not. It's like...
Is it as violent as it was? It's not as violent as it was.
It depends where.
Right.
Because Pablo Escobar wanted to fight against the state, the government, so he was putting bombs all around Colombia in the big cities. We don't have that violence right now in Medellín, but last week 50,000 people were displaced from their homes because there is a war. between criminal groups that fight for the roots, for the cocaine crops. So there is one guerrilla, which name is ELN, but they are not a guerrilla with ideals anymore. They are really permeated by drug trafficking. And also we had a peace process a couple of years ago, but some people that gave up their arms, they went back to war, and they are controlling also a lot of the cocaine trade. And there is a group which is like maybe the most powerful one in Colombia, called El Clan del Golfo. And this group has to be with the paramilitary groups that were before. And they are also with the drug business. So
is this an everyday conversation in Colombia on the news? Because we don't see it here in the US.
Yeah.
50,000 people,
Yeah.
we don't hear a word.
Totally. I am really interested, for example, in how language changed because of this war on drugs and because of the illegality of drugs.
Right.
So every day I am clipping the newspaper because I find words that has the prefix narco. So one of my last pieces was a narco landscape, and there were like 12 images, 12 pages, and each page had all the narco words that were published in one newspaper during that month. Okay. So it happened for 12 months. So you can see in this landscape like how the prefix narco is published, and then it is a work about time. And the question regarding time is, how long do we have to wait until every object becomes narcotized or narcoticized in Colombia because of this war on drugs? And so for me, it's a matter of thinking how this war can end without the violence is still present in Colombia, because if you have a war on drugs, you are trying to control violence with more violence, and
Correct.
What it generates is even more violence.
So what do you think a good solution of that would be?
First, I think cocaine and the hard drugs should be regulated. It's like legalized, but not like teenagers could buy them. It has to be regulated, in my opinion, because it's been 50 years since the war on drugs started. And it started because they didn't want people in North America to take drugs, but there are a lot of people taking drugs, so it's a failure for me. So it has to be with stop spending that money in a war regarding violence, and investing that money in infrastructure, in the crops, that instead of cocaine. But there has to be infrastructure, because the narcos go to buy the coca crops. But if you have pineapples, you don't have roads to get the pineapples out of the region where you grow them. And also the criminal gangs, they stop the peasants and they ask for money.
Yeah.
So it's really complicated, but I guess the first step is trying to stop one violence that generates more violence. Yeah. And regarding the trials that have been happening in the United States, and for a couple of years, I have heard that now they are trying to get the prohibition back because they have not been successful. But those trials have been for 2-3 years. So if the war on drugs didn't work for 50 years, why they should be stopped after 2 years? Like right. There are other 48 years to try to manage in another way
it's just crazy problem. Like the money leaks out one way or another, right? If it's not on a court and legal fees, it's being taken, and the money that's taken and spent on this is taxpayer money. Like how do they fund that?
There is a lot that comes from the United States. The one that comes from Colombia is from taxes.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of money. The money of the drugs also gets into the hands of people that shouldn't have that money, because they waste to confront their enemies is not a legal way.
It just seems like the money goes from one place to another and it goes in circles. It's like everybody kind of works together, right?
Yeah, and
unfortunately.
Also, beyond that, the question is like how the whole financial system around the world is laundering this money.
Yeah.
And it happens here in the United States because here there is a lot of money because Colombia produces the drug, but here there is a market and you have demand. If you have demand, you have production.
Yeah.
And how this money is circulating in the North American economy as well.
Just a big hamster wheel,
Yeah.
right? Just keep running.
Enormous, giant.
So I want to talk to you about how you became an artist. You first went to college, right? In California, right?
It was when I was 38 because I studied mechanical engineering in Colombia in 1991. I started, but at the end of 1995, I went on a trip around South America for a couple of months as a backpacker with a couple of friends. And I became really interested in photography. So I finished mechanical engineering. I wanted to study literature, but after this trip, I said, no, I'm going to study photography. So I took a couple of courses, and then I became a teacher, but I realized that I didn't know anything about art. So I went back to university. I studied a master in aesthetics, but it was more like philosophy of art and critical studies.
Okay.
So I felt always like a self-made artist. It became an obsession in my head to come here to study an MFA in arts. By that time I was working as a wedding photographer to make a living and making my things that didn't give me any I mean, I was spending more than I was
on your supplies. Yeah.
I got a Fulbright grant, and then in 2011, I went to CalArts in Santa Clarita, which is like 1 hour from Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And I studied an MFA in arts for 2 years, and it changed my practice and it changed me.
How was that for you? Like such a paradigm shift in your life, right? During that time, it's almost as like you were just restarting.
Absolutely.
What was that experience like for you?
The first semester was like going into a deep hole because when I arrived there, I couldn't understand other people talking in English. It was like as if I was a baby saying, "Hi, my name is Camilo, I am from Colombia," and the conversation couldn't go further than that. I became really anxious. The classes I wanted to take, I dropped them because they were too complicated for me.
At the time.
At that time.
Yeah.
I couldn't have any ideas, so I got really, really anxious. I didn't know if I took a shower during the morning. At midday, I was like, did I take a shower or not? And I was depressed, I was crying a lot. There was Catalina, my partner, she's a psychologist, so I said to her, like, listen, I can't do it anymore, I am going back to Colombia. And she said, I don't know where you are coming, because if you are not coming to my place, maybe you are going to your father's or something like that. And I was like, oh.
Motivating,
so
yes.
She
knew you well enough to say something like that.
Of course, because she knew that I was going to regret that for the rest of my life. So she hung I'm doing like this because it was like a really, a really old telephone when I was a kid, but we stopped talking. Yeah, and she thought I was going to commit suicide that night, and then I started to draw a little bit without knowing how to draw, and it was like the way I found to deal with my anxiety, with my depression, with my sadness. And she said to me, like, listen, I have a really good friend who is a psychiatrist. She has a boyfriend there in LA. You need to call him. And I called Mike. That I always say that Mike saved my life. He was like, oh man, you have the worst anxiety attack that I have seen in my life. And I was like, no, I am not running naked in nature. And he was like, no, that's not anxiety. Which is the closest pharmacy to you? Near you. I searched it, I said that to him, and he said, like, go there, take the pill that they are going to give you. So I went there, I took the pill, And after half an hour, it was like, oh my God, I have been living with anxiety forever since I remember, and underwent psychoanalysis for 15 years. So I was like really angry with this guy because like talking for twice a week for 15 years and then realizing that just a pill could get
Change
me
everything.
just better. It was really tough.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
And also there was a funny story which actually was really important also with Catalina. And it was that as I was working as a wedding photographer, my friend who was getting married said to me, listen, I will give you the tickets and you will give me the photos of my wedding. I was, yeah.
You gotta love a good barter when you're an artist, right? I always say to artists, if I was an artist, I would be bartering with every artist I know. I'd be trading, because it works.
Yeah, totally.
And it makes you feel good to know that you have one of your friends' works hanging in your place and vice versa. It's a beautiful thing.
So we exchanged. By that time, after 3 months of study at CalArts, I lost like 20, 30 pounds.
Wow.
So I was really skinny. I went there, I took the pictures, and when I was going back to CalArts, I was crying in front of Catalina, and she said to me like, why are you crying? And I was like, because I don't want to go back. Why? Because I feel that I am the most stupid person in the world. And she asked, for how long have you been feeling like that? And I said, like, since I remember. And she again, like, what have you been trying to get rid of that feeling? I said, like, yeah, I am trying really, really hard not to be the most stupid person in the world. And she asked me, do you think that strategy
is a good goal? Yeah.
And I was like, no. And she said like, okay, why don't you think that you are the most stupid person in the world and you accept that? And it was a huge change in my life because I went back to CalArts, and if I didn't understand anything talking to other people, I said like, okay, I'm really stupid, so I go to work at my studio. So like medication and also this event were really, really important for me. So that was the first semester, like a really, really difficult one.
I think it's also really important to bring up that internal dialogue dictates our life, right?
Of course.
Making that as your goal, I'm just trying not to be the most stupid person in the room. You're labeling yourself as stupid every day when you wake up. How did you change that? What did you say to yourself after this talk that you had? Was there a different psychology that you brought in? Was like, I'm going to be the smartest person in the room? And like, what was it that you would say to yourself over and over and over to break that habit?
No, actually what I was trying to be the smartest guy in the world. That was the problem. And I was trying to stop my obsessive thoughts or thinking with violence, like really hard. And the more violence you apply, the stronger the thoughts get. There is a connection what I just said about the war on drugs, because it's like trying to eradicate something with violence, it gets stronger and there is more violence. Same with what is happening inside.
In your head. You had a war in your head.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I was younger, I was listening to Tony Robbins, and he said, if there's something that you'd like to stop, you can put a rubber band and just snap it every time you do it and just sort of shock yourself into changing that habit. And I think that really works if you catch yourself. If you pay attention to what you'd like to change, that's really important.
Yeah.
And obviously you did something right. And being at the bottom, I always say whenever things get really bad, the best news is that you can only go up from here. So let's talk about like when that little bit of light came in and how you lifted yourself up. I mean, it's a great story.
Yeah. At the very beginning of the second semester, I had my first year exhibition. So a teacher convinced me to show the drawings I was making to myself. They were not meant to be shown to other people. I had that in the show, and I also had like a really elaborate work about erasure and how erasure produced more violence. And
Let's talk about that, because I think that was a really important part of the article. When I read that part of the article,
Yeah.
I was really like, oof, that made a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
talk to me about that erasure work that you were doing.
Yeah, because the more you erase something from the eraser, so I was like coloring something, erasing, coloring, erasing, coloring, erasing, like trying to erase the thought. And the title of the exhibition was The Difficult Task of Erasing a Thought. So when I saw this very elaborate work, I looked at it and I was like, oh God, I am aestheticizing my pain. But when I looked at the small drawings, I was like, wow, that's pain. In that moment, I realized that I needed to go to the studio and dismantle my anxiety, my obsessions, my neuroses, my perfectionism.
It's pretty amazing to think that you can have the talent to even put that and make something real. Like sometimes people just write poems or that's how they get that out, but you were physically making things that you were finding that you thought were appropriate at the time.
It was also really important to try to do things without the fear of making mistakes. That was the second
You had
semester.
to break it. Yeah, I love that.
So I dismantled myself, and at the end,
and everything
I was
else
like,
around you.
yeah, I was like broken into pieces. And then the third semester, when I went back to Colombia and come back to the United States, and I started a drawing on the plane. And then when the page was full, I attached another page and then another page. So I was creating a really huge drawing. And
What made you start that? Just doing it on individual pages? Because that's what you do with your art. It's not a big canvas. It's literally like, how big are the pages? 8.5 by 11 pages? And you start and then you just continue on to the next one and you tape them in the back. I
think it has to be with having no constraints in the mind, as I usually had for 40 years.
Right.
So it allowed me to grow the drawing in the direction I wanted and to stop when I wanted, because otherwise I will be like trying to make the perfect stuff that matches the borders of the drawing.
Composition.
It was like getting out of the line. When you are a kid, that they teach you not to get out of the line, so you get like, oh my God, this is a mistake, and it's more like that. So I had a lot of studio visits. It works. CalArts is a little bit as fountainhead, that you receive a lot of people in the studio and you talk about your work. The school was really conceptual. They were pushing me like...
They probably loved what you were doing.
No.
No?
They hated that.
Oh, so now you were drawing.
Yeah, the third semester I started drawing and they didn't like that. The second semester they were like, there is this weird guy that was so shy at the beginning, he didn't talk too much, and now he is like really...
Something's happening in that.
really crazy, and his head maybe is not really good.
I think that's usually the beginning of something great when things like that happen.
I was getting anxious again because of that. And people came to me and said like...
You were getting anxious because they didn't like what you were doing of the drawing?
They were asking me questions like, where are you going with this? Which are the concepts behind the work? And things like that. So I was like, this is the first time that I'm not judging myself while I am doing something related to art or related to anything, because I was like that. This means that I am an artisan instead of an artist.
So be it.
I prefer to be an artisan because this is like the most beautiful space that I have constructed in my life.